For over 2 weeks now, everybody playing BTD6 has gone crazy over this new bug that's been discovered. The total transformation bug broke everything. You could now link towers together, tricking the game into thinking that they were sort of the same tower, and this allowed for some insane stuff to be pulled off. You could give the true Sun God infinite upgrades. You could refresh the creation of paragons to get degrees higher than the solo maximum. Merge temples with paragons, make everything attack 100 times faster and shoot plasma, make abilities permanent, gain infinite money and freaking sell bosses. There was nothing about the game that wasn't completely broken, and everyone loved it. I would make at least one video every single day of new exploits that were being discovered, and it never seemed to end. The fans begged the developers to not rush a fix and let them play around with the bug for a while longer before releasing a fix, suggesting a ban of the Total Transformation Tower in ranked boss events as a band-aid fix, with some players even wishing for the bug to become a setting in the game that you could turn on in private games. Kiwi had accidentally given themselves and their player base an incredible amount of playable content. As soon as the bug came out, we did a 9-hour livestream to 6 AM to try and understand the bug. It was just too interesting to take your eyes off, but of course it would still need to be fixed at some point. But how hard would this be for Kiwi to fix? What was causing all this to happen in the first place? To recap the basics of how to perform the bug, you first need to get a Total Transformation Alchemist whose ability can transform the 5 closest towers into monsters for a short period of time. Then, after the ability has finished, you have a certain amount of time in which you can place down some more towers, and there would be a chance that one of the towers would get linked up to one of the towers that you originally transformed. Naturally, the first guess of many was that the tower IDs of the linked towers were being mixed up somehow, but that turned out to be false. In one of my videos I mentioned that a modder by the name of Minecool had done some testing and found out that the linked towers had separate IDs. In fact, nothing seemed to be wrong with the tower IDs whatsoever, so what else could be causing this to happen? Just 5 days after the first video appeared on YouTube of the bug, a Reddit post by one of the most well-known modders in the BTD6 community, doombubbles, made a post detailing what he had found to be the inner workings of several of the related bugs that we had found, like the infinite abilities bug and the so-called ghost links. But let's start at the beginning. What causes a tower to be linked to another one if it's got nothing to do with the tower IDs? Well, it has to do with the game's so-called entity factory. This is the part of the code that generates entities. An entity can be, for example, a tower, a bloon, or something like the cave monkey on the map Frozen Over, or the attacking statue on the map Dark Dungeons. Basically, an entity can be anything that can have behaviors attached to it. Every tower also has a property called dependent entities, which is a list of other entities that are dependent on the base entity. For example, the Ace has the platform as its base entity, and the plane is an entity that is dependent on the platform, and they both together make up the tower. This is not exactly the same as being a sub-tower. For example, the sentries that the engineer puts down are considered by the game code to be separate towers that belong to the engineer tower. But being on the dependent entity list of a tower basically means that you are part of that very same tower. When the Total Transformation ability is applied to a Dart Monkey, its base tower entity stays, but its one and only entity on the dependent entity list, the one that is used for it to be able to attack, is temporarily removed from the list along with its own dependent entity, the weapon. Then a new laser attack entity and laser weapon entity is added instead. After the ability wears off, the Dart Attack entity is added back onto the list while the Laser Attack entity is marked as destroyed. Then an Effect entity is added to create the puff of blue smoke right as the ability ends. This entity stays on the dependent entity list for 4 seconds and then gets marked as destroyed as well, and then gets sent back to the entity factory's pool of available entities that can be reused. When you then place down new towers, one of them may end up using the same entity that was previously used for that puff of blue smoke, but it will now be assigned new behaviors in the new tower. So how come there is a limited window of time to perform the bug after the total transformation ability is finished? Well, this is because the entities are stored inside the cache, which is a small but very fast piece of memory inside the CPU of the computer. If the cache is cleared, then these old entities that could have been reused gets completely removed from memory. The cache gets partially cleared once every second, clearing up to 10% at a time. The transformation ability expiring on 5 dart monkeys leads to 15 entities marked as destroyed. 5 attack entities and 5 weapon entities gets marked instantly, and then 5 more entities from the visual effect expiring 4 seconds later. This means it takes about 14 seconds for the cache to fully clear, leaving you with a limited time to perform the bug. So how come sometimes you get a link and other times you don't? And how come some people manage to perform the bug so consistently? When the transformation runs out, you first have to wait 4 seconds for the effect entities to get marked as destroyed and moved into the entity factory so that they can be reused. And then you place down your towers before the entities gets cleared from the cache or gets reused by something else like a bloon spawning. Here is a video from doombubbles that visualizes this. Each red square is an entity in the cache that can be reused, and they are disappearing as time goes by as they're getting cleared. 4 seconds after the transformation is over, 5 green squares gets added to the cache, and this is the effect entities that can be used to create links. Getting it consistently in a real game will be a bit harder since it's a much less controlled environment compared to Sandbox with things getting added and removed from the cache constantly, but it's still pretty consistent and also a lot cheaper than just spamming towers. So that is why the connection is happening. But how come it's possible for us to perform all these crazy tricks using this bug? Since this works on every entity that is created, you are able to link more than just towers. A few days into the bug, a Reddit user accidentally got the timing right such that he linked the boss to a dart monkey, which he then sold, causing the boss to get insta-killed. The reason abilities like the Super Monkey Fan Club and the Plasma Monkey Fan Club can affect towers that are not actually dart monkeys is because when we activate the abilities, they find the few closest dart monkeys and turns them into the respective upgraded versions. But it doesn't stop there. The ability also goes through every single dependent entity and applies the same effect to all of them. The reason it does this, of course, is because what we learned a few minutes ago about the dart monkey's internal workings. It's made up of 2 entities, the base tower and the attack entity, which in turn also has its own dependent entity, the weapon entity. So for the fan club abilities to actually affect the attacks, it needs to apply the effect to all dependent entities, and since we are able to put pretty much any tower on this list, they will also transform whenever one of those abilities are activated and transforms the base entity that our tower is dependent on. So that seems pretty straightforward now that we know how towers are linked, but what about making abilities permanent? How does that work? The first step is to understand what an ability really is. For most abilities, they are implemented as a temporary attack to the tower. The first time the ability is used, it adds the attack to the tower and then pauses the attack when the time of the ability runs out. Each subsequent ability used then simply unpauses the attack for the ability duration and then pauses it again once it's over. The next step is understanding specifically how the Wizard's Tier 5 ability works. Using it transforms the wizard into a lava phoenix for a set amount of time, and in place of the wizard is a fire emblem on the ground to indicate that this space is taken but the wizard is currently transformed. What really happens in the game's code is that the wizard himself actually gets turned into the emblem on the ground and his attacks are paused as the phoenix spawns in the air. When the ability is finished, the phoenix is deleted and the wizard gets back his original form instead of being an emblem, and his attacks are unpaused. Link the wizard to another tower with an ability and you have yourself a recipe for disaster. As you can see, using the wizard's ability when having another tower linked to it causes the linked tower to stop attacking. This is because since they are linked, the linked tower will also get its attacks paused as the game believes that the sniper monkey is an entity that is part of the wizard tower and is thus supposed to have its attacks paused as it is currently believed to be an emblem. Use the sniper's ability when the wizard's ability is active and you will get this. An endless stream of abilities that never ever stop, not even in between rounds. This is because even though this ability is not an attack, it is still coded as an attack that takes place every 2.1 seconds that the ability is active. Here's what is happening step by step. Triggering the wizard's ability pauses the attacks of the sniper monkey since the game believes it's part of the wizard. Then we use the sniper's ability, which works despite its attacks being paused since the ability has the function to pause and unpause itself. So the sniper ability gets used once, it unpauses and then pauses itself like it normally would, but then the wizard ability ends, which unpauses the attacks for itself and the dependent linked tower, causing the sniper ability to never be paused again, unless you were to click the sniper ability while it's already permanent. Other abilities, such as the SAR Bomba, which we noticed in the Infinite Abilities video, fires off its ability again if the cooldown is refreshed, by either clicking the refresh button in Sandbox or using a rejuve potion in a real game. It doesn't go on forever on its own like most other abilities. This is because some abilities that only attacks once, like the SAR Bomba, has the property IsOneShot set to true, and this causes the game to perform a check to see if the cooldown is fully refreshed before it can use the same attack again. So how come the submarine's first strike ability works automatically then? Surely that ability is also a one-shot ability. Well, while that ability also only fires once, just like the SAR Bomba, it does not have the IsOneShot property set to true, which is why it can work automatically. As to why it isn't set to true, it seems to just have been an arbitrary decision made by the developers, as when the time of the ability attack is less than 1 second, it doesn't really make any difference for the player which way you choose to code it, or so they thought. The whole Infinite Abilities glitch can also be performed using the Tier 4 Alchemist ability, since it also works in a similar way as the Wizard. The normal tower goes invisible and gets its attacks paused while it is replaced with another one for a set duration. But now on to something stronger. Applying infinite upgrades to the temple, True Sun God / VTSG. Linking any tower to a super monkey and then upgrading it into a temple or higher cost every single upgrade on the base tower linked to it to make the temple stronger. If you made a chain link with the temple at the end, you could theoretically apply an incredible amount of upgrades to the temple and make it one-shot everything almost forever. It didn't take long before people understood that it didn't matter which tower was linked to the super monkey. The upgrades on the base tower added the same amount of strength to the temple. Linking a ninja to the temple and giving the ninja seeking attacks did not make the temple get seeking attacks as well, but simply made it stronger. What was happening here was that every single upgrade on the base tower caused the bonuses from the different sacrifices that was given to the temple at creation to be applied again. This was found out easily by testing to upgrade the base tower linked to a temple without any sacrifices. No matter how many upgrades given to it, it did not make the temple any stronger. The reason the sacrifices gets applied again is because they are added as mutators. The base temple has a certain amount of damage, attack speed, etc., and then the sacrifices mutate those base properties by multiplying or adding to those values. When you upgrade a tower, its so-called root model or base definition is changed, and thus any mutators needs to be reapplied. Upgrading the base tower linked to a temple will cause the temple to reapply its mutators, but without the temple actually being upgraded. This also explains how we could recreate paragons and get higher degrees when upgrading the base tower linked to it. It caused the root model to change, and so the mutators that are applied when creating the paragon needed to be applied again. And now for the part that perhaps was the most mysterious one when the bug was first found. Ghost links and its even more mysterious bigger brother, hidden ghost links. When linking a tower to another, you will notice that you get a white outline around the tower that you select, as well as any tower linked to it down the chain, as the game thinks that they are part of the same tower. But sometimes you would get a white outline on the linked tower that looked a bit off. It wasn't surrounding the whole tower, but only part of it. Selling the base tower linked to another caused all linked towers to get sold as well, but if you sold a tower with a ghost link, only that part of the linked tower with an outline when selected would get sold. This led to some Frankenstein-like creations that sometimes were unable to even shoot, or in many cases selling the base tower that was ghost linked to another would outright crash the game. The explanation for ghost links was pretty intuitive. Some towers have more than one part/entity, and you could also get towers linked to these entities. If you had a dart monkey linked to a part of a tower instead of getting a normal outline, using the fan club abilities often did not work very well, as most behaviors are defined on the base entity of the tower. So what about the mysterious big brother? Sometimes you could get a link without any outline whatsoever. The only way you could tell that a link even existed was because you can trigger the abilities of linked towers from the base tower in the chain. But if the linked tower doesn't have any abilities, that would make this ghost link completely undetectable. Hence the name Hidden Ghost Links. The reason this was happening was because all towers have extra entities that don't have any visual parts. These entities are needed for the way some attacks and weapons etc. are implemented, so there is always a chance to get a link like this with any tower you're attempting to do the bug with. Many have stated that they think that this bug might be very hard for Ninja Kiwi to fix, but that was before we knew exactly what caused it. With current knowledge, it doesn't seem like this would be a hard fix. Simply make sure that the effect entity does not stay on the dependent entity list permanently and the bug is fixed. Despite this, Ninja Kiwi does not seem to be rushing to get a fix out, as over 2 weeks has passed with this game-breaking bug still in the game. For the second boss week during this bug, they chose to ban the Total Transformation Tower as a hotfix as expected, but a patch does not seem like it will be coming out until the next major update, which will be update 39, and that's not until several more weeks at least. So Ninja Kiwi accidentally gave their player base some of the most fun, incredible content they've had in years, and seemingly decided to keep it around for a while longer to keep the players happy until the next major update, where they will release new content to take the place of the Total Transformation bug as the center of attention. Huge thanks again to doombubbles for figuring all of this out and helping me put this video together. You will find his links in the video description. Leave the video a like and let me know in the comments if you know of any other games that has had bugs in this order of magnitude. Thank you for watching, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.